Hello. Now that I'm unmuted, um, welcome to the stream, everyone. I think it's safe to say that that today has been a bit crazy. Um, we reached 500 followers on Twitter, which was really awesome, and I I promised that when we reached 100 followers on Twitch, that I would do something that I really never thought I would do, and that is to do a cover. I don't know if I'm gonna do it like live on Twitch or if it's gonna be like a recording. I don't know. Probably just uh, I will sing the Misty Mountains Cold song from The Hobbit. Um, so that'll be fun. Um, I hope you guys enjoy that. My and that my singing voice doesn't uh, leave your ears bleeding and broken. Because I don't know, like it's one thing to sing like in the car when you're driving and you're just belting out whatever the song is. It's entirely difficult. It's entirely different to sing like technically in front of people. So that's a bit nerve wracking, but also I think it'll be fun um, for everyone involved. So yeah, I think I will start the stream also by thanking some new followers to the library. Um, oh, and also we now have a Discord. Um, Thank you to uh, Darth Karan for helping me get that set up. Um, I'll put the link here in the chat if I can. Discord. Or maybe it just won't work. Cool. That's fine. Um, we'll I'll just get the link and put it in chat. Um, where? Let's see. There we go. Sorry, hit my mic. I was trying to stretch and I hit my mic. So yeah, join if you are so inclined. It's very early stages, but I wanted to try to have like a central hub for us to hang out and chat about books and all that stuff. So that's there if you want to join. So let's thank some the new followers. Thank you, Validity XP, for following. Thank you for joining the library. Thank you, Mustard Uwu. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, Lasso Katsudi, for the follow. Thank you, Kina Omoy, for the follow. Thank you, Mobs Comatech, for the follow. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kaiko Hitachin. Thank you for the follow. And lastly, May Muscaria. Thank you for the follow. I'm incredibly grateful for everyone who has been so kind to me and followed me on Twitter and followed me here on Twitch. I honestly can't believe at times that things have progressed this far so quickly, and I'm so grateful. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully things will only get better from here. So today I want to read some more Dracula because that's been really fun, and we are going to be starting at chapter 5. Oh no. I put something sticky and that wasn't good. Luckily my copy of Dracula is really old, so it's okay. Yeah. Got it. Be right back. Okay. Okay. So, let's get started. Chapter 5. Letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westerna. My dearest Lucy, 9 May. Forgive my long delay in writing, but I have been simply overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you, and by the sea, where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. I have been working very hard lately, but because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies, I have been practicing shorthand very assiduously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan. And if I can stenograph well enough, I can take down what he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, at which also I am practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenograph journal of his shorthand, of his travels abroad, sorry. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't mean one of those 2 pages to the week with Sunday squeezed in the corner diaries, but a sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be much of interest to other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day, if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions, and trying to remember conversations. I am told that with a little practice, one can remember all that goes on or that one hears so during the day. However, we shall see. I will tell you of my little plans when we meet. I have just had a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. Hello? Maybe. Am I live again? That cool. Okay. Hi. Yeah, my internet cut out apparently. Oops. I'll just go back a couple, like a paragraph or something. Um, how's it going, Lex Cat? I'm great. Today has been a little bit um a little bit crazy. But I didn't expect to hit 500 followers on Twitter so fast, and now 87 on Twitch, and it's it's been amazing, and everyone is so nice, and I don't know. I honestly find it difficult to express how much like I appreciate everyone. um, but yeah, it's it's great. Oh well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I guess since my internet cut out, I'll just start. I just started, so I can just start from the beginning again. Um, Chapter 5. Letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westerna. My dearest Lucy, 9 May. Forgive my long delay in writing, but I have simply been overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea, where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. I have been working very hard lately, because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies. I have been practicing shorthand very studiously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan, and if I can stenograph well enough, I can take down what he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, at which I am also practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal of his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't mean one of those two pages to the week with Sunday squeezed in a corner diaries, but a sort of journal where I can write in which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be much of interest to other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions, and trying to remember conversations. I am told that with a little practice, one can remember all that goes on, or that one hears said during a day. However, we shall see. I will tell you of my little plans when we meet. I have just had a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. He is well, and will be returning in about a week. I am longing to hear all his news. It must be so nice to see strange countries. I wonder if we, I mean Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. There's the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye. Your loving Mina. Tell me all the news when you write. You have uh, told me not. You have not told me anything for a long time. I hear rumors, especially of a tall, handsome, curly-haired man. Letter. Lucy Westerna to Mina Murner. Uh, Murray. 17 Chatham Street, Wednesday. My dearest Mina, must say you tax me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote to you twice since we parted, and your last letter was only your second. What? So they wrote the same number of times. What's she complaining about? uh. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There is really nothing to interest you. Town is very pleasant just now, and we go a good deal to picture galleries and for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was the one who was with me at the last pop. Someone has evidently been telling tales. That was Mr. Holmwood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mama get on very well together. They have so many things to talk about in common. We met some time ago a man that would do just for you if you were not already engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent parti, being handsome, well off, and of good birth. He is a doctor and really clever. Just fancy. He is only 29, and he has an immense lunatic asylum all under his own care. Mr. Holmwood introduced him to me, and he called here to see us. And often comes now. I think he is one of the most resolute men I have ever seen, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a wonderful power he must have over his patients. He has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face, as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me, but I flatter myself that he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that from my glass. Do you ever try to read your own face? I do. And I can tell you it is not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you have never tried it. He says that I afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think I do. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the new fashions. Dress is a bore. That is slang again, but never mind. Arthur says that every day. It is all out. Mina, we have told all our secrets to each other since we were children. We have slept together and eaten together and laughed and cried together. And now that, although I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh, Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I am blushing as I write, for although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words. But, oh, Mina, I love him. I love him. I love him. There, that does me good. I wish I were with you, dear, sitting by the fire undressing, as we used to sit, and I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this even to you. I am afraid to stop, or I should tear up the letter, and I don't want to stop, for I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and tell me all that you think about it, Mina. I must stop. Good night. Bless you in your prayer. Bless me in your prayers, and Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. P.S. I need not tell you this is a secret. Good night again. L. Letter from Lucy Westerna to Mina Murray. 24 May. My dearest Mina, thanks and thanks and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and to have your sympathy. My dear, it never rains but it pours. How true the old proverbs are. Here I am, who shall be 20 in September, and yet I never had a proposal till today. Not a real proposal. And today I have had 3. Just fancy. 3 proposals in one day. Isn't it awful? I feel sorry, really and truly sorry for 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy that I don't know what to do with myself. And 3 proposals. But for goodness sakes, don't tell any of the girls, or they would be getting all sorts of extravagant ideas, imagining themselves injured and slighted, if in their very first day at home they did not get 6 at least. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to settle down soon soberly into old married women, can despise vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3, but you must keep it a secret, dear, from everyone, except, of course, Jonathan. You will tell him, because I would, if I were in your place, certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything, don't you think so, dear? And I must be fair. Men like women, certainly their wives, to be quite as fair as they are, and women, I'm afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear, number one came just before lunch. I told you of him, Dr. John Seward, the lunatic asylum man, with the strong jaw and the good forehead. He was cool outwardly. He was very cool outwardly, but was very nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself as to all sorts of little things, and remembered them. But he almost managed to sit down on his silk hat, which men don't generally do when they are cool. And then, when he wanted to appear at ease, he kept playing with a lancet in a way that made me nearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had known me so little, and what his life would be with me to help and cheer him. He was going to tell me how unhappy he would be if I did not care for him, but when he saw me cry, he said that he was a brute and would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I could love him in time, and when I shook my head, his hands trembled, and then, with some hesitation, he asked me if I cared already for anyone else. He put it very nicely, saying that he did not want to wring my confidence from me, but only to know, because if a woman's heart was free, a man might have hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone else. I only told him that much, and then he stood up and looked very strong and very grave as he took both my hands in his and said he hoped I would be happy, and that if I ever wanted a friend, I must count him one of my best. Oh, Mina, dear, I can't help crying, and you must excuse this letter for being bald-blotted. Being proposed to is all very nice, and all that sort of thing, but it isn't at all a happy thing when you have to see a poor fellow whom you know loves you honestly, going away and looking all broken-hearted, and to know that no matter what he may say at that moment, you are passing quite out of his life. My dear, I stop here at present. I feel so miserable, though I am so happy. Arthur has just gone. Evening. Arthur has just gone, and I feel in better spirits than when I left off. So I can go on telling you about the day. Well, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He is such a nice fellow, an American from Texas. And he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible that he has been to so many places and has had such adventures. I sympathize with poor Desdemona when she had such a dangerous stream poured in her ear, even by a black man. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from our fears, and we marry him. I know now what I would do if I were a man and wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't. For there was Mr. Morris telling us his stories, and Arthur never told, and yet, my dear, I am somewhat previous. Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. It seems that a man always does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't, for Arthur tried twice to make a chance. And I helping him all I could. I am not ashamed to say it now. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers or before them, for he really is well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out that it amused me to hear him talk American slang. And whenever I was present, and there was no one to be shocked, he said such funny things. I am afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. But this is a way slang has. I do not know myself if I shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, as I have never heard him use any yet. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me and looked as happy and jolly as he could, but I could see all the same that he was very nervous. He took my hand in his and said ever so sweetly, Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixins of your little shoes, but I guess if you wait till you find a man that is, you will go join them 7 young women with the lamps when you quit. Won't you just hitch up alongside me and let us go down the long road together, driving in a double harness? Well, he did look so good-humored and so jolly that it didn't seem half so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Seward. So I said as lightly as I could that I did not know anything of hitching, and that I wasn't broken to harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner, and he hoped that if had made a mistake in doing so on so grave, so momentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look serious when he said it, and I couldn't help feeling a bit nervous, a bit serious too. I know, Mina, you will think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help feeling a sort of an exultation that he was number 2 in one day. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he begins pouring out a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think a man must be playful always, and never earnest, because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for suddenly he stopped and said with a sort of manly fervor that I could have loved him for if I had been free. Lucy, you are an honest girl, an honest-hearted girl, I know. I should not be here speaking to you as I am now if I did not believe you clean grit, right through to the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anyone else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again. But will be, if you let me, a very faithful friend. My dear Mina, why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them? Here was I almost making fun of this great-hearted, true gentleman. I burst into tears, I'm afraid, my dear. You will think this is a very sloppy letter, in more ways than one. And I really felt very badly. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as want her, and save all this trouble? But this is heresy, and I must not say it. I am glad to say that, though I was crying, I was able to look into Mr. Morris's eyes and told him out straight. Yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me. I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he put out both his hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and said in a hearty way, "That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning you than being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness, well, he'd better look for it soon, or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rarer than a lover. It's more unselfish, anyhow. My dear, I'm going to have a pretty lonely walk between this and Kingdom Come. Won't you give me one kiss? It'll be something to keep off the darkness now and then." This guy's smooth. You can, if you like, for that other good fellow. He must be a good fellow, my dear, and a fine fellow, or you could not love him. Hasn't spoken yet. That quite won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him, and noble, too, to a rival, wasn't it? And he was so sad. So I leant over and kissed him. He stood up with my 2 hands in his, and as he looked down into my face, I am afraid I was blushing very much. He said, "Little girl, I hold your hand, and you've kissed me, and if these things don't make us friends, nothing ever will. Thank you for your sweet honesty to me, and goodbye. He wrung my hand, and taking up his hat, went straight out of the room without looking back, without a tear or a quiver or a pause. And I am crying like a baby. Oh, why must a man look like that, be made unhappy when there are lots of girls about who would worship the very ground he trod on? I know I would if I were free. Only I don't want to be free. My dear, this quite upset me, and I feel I cannot write of happiness just at once, after telling you of it. And I don't wish to tell of number 3 until I can be all happy. Ever your loving Lucy. P.S. Oh, about number 3. I didn't tell you of number 3, did I? Besides, it was all so confused. It seemed only a moment from his coming into the room till both his arms were round me, and he was kissing me. I am very, very happy, and I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must only try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful to God for all his goodness to me in sending to me such a lover, such a husband, and such a friend. Goodbye. Dr. Seward's Diary. Kept in phonograph. 25 May. Ebb tide in appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems sufficient importance to be worth doing. As I knew that the only cure for this sort of thing was work, I went down amongst the patients. I picked out one who was afforded me a study of much interest. He is so quaint that I am determined to understand him as well as I can. Today seemed to get nearer than I seemed to get nearer than ever before to the heart of his mystery. I questioned him more fully than I had ever done, with a view to making myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing it, there was, I see now, something of cruelty. I seemed to wish to keep him to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with the patients, as I would the mouth of hell. Memorandum. Under what circumstances would I not avoid the pit of hell? Omnia romne venelia sunt. Hell has its price. Verb sap. If there be anything behind this instinct, it will be valuable to trace it afterwards accurately. So I had better commence to do so, therefore. R.M. Renfield, 59. Sanguine temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable. Periods of gloom, ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish. A possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish men, caution is as secure an armor for their foes as for themselves. What I think of on this point is when self is the fixed point, the centripetal force is balanced with the centrifugal. When duty, a cause, etc., is the fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accident or series of accidents can balance it. Letter from Quincy P. Morris to the Honorable Arthur Holmwood. How does he know that Arthur is the man? Because she didn't tell him the name. "25 May. My dear Art, we've told yarns by the campfire in the prairies and dressed one another's wounds after trying a landing at the Marquesas and drunk healths on the shore of Titicaca. There are more yarns to be told, and other wounds to be healed, and another health to be drunk. Won't you let this be at my campfire tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know a certain lady is engaged to a certain dinner party, and that you are free. There will be only one other, our old pal at the Korea, Jack Seward. Oh, they're all friends. Okay, never mind. That's why. Awkward. He's coming too, and we both want to mingle our weeps over the wine cup, and to drink a health with all our hearts to the happiest man in all the wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God has made, and the best worth winning. We promise you a hearty welcome, and a loving greeting, and a health as true as your own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home, if you drink too deep, to a certain pair of eyes. Come. Yours, as ever and always, Quincy P. Morris. Telegram from Arthur Holmwood to Quincy P. Morris. 26 May. Count me in every time. I bear messages which will make both your ears tingle. Oh. Ouch. We'll take a quick water drink. That's going to be kind of a dick move by Arthur, by the way. Just a little bit. Okay. Chapter 6. Mina Murray's Journal. 24 July, Whitby. Lucy met me at the station, looking sweeter and lovelier than ever, and we drove up to the house at the Crescent, in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. Sorry. The little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley, which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across with high piers, through which the view seems somehow further away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and it is so steep that when you are on the highland, on either side you look right across it, unless you are near enough to see down. The houses of the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed, and seem piled up one over the other anyhow, like the pictures we see of Nuremberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of part of Marmion, where the girl was built up in the wall. It is a most noble ruin of immense size, and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There is a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town, there is another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard full of tombstones. This, to my mind, is the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town, and has a full view of the harbor and all up the bay to where the headland, called Kettleness, stretches out into the sea. It ascends so steeply over the harbor that part of the bank has fallen away, and some of the graves have been destroyed. In one place, part of the stonework of the graves stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks, with seats beside them, through the churchyard, and people go and sit there all day long looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now with my book on my knee and listening to the talk of 3 old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing all day but sit up here and talk. The harbor lies below me, with on the far side one long granite wall stretching out to the sea, with a curve outwards at the end of it, in the middle of which is a lighthouse. A heavy sea wall runs along outside of it. On the near side, the sea wall makes an elbow crooked inversely, and its end too it has a lighthouse. Between the 2 piers there is a narrow opening into the harbor, which then suddenly widens. It is nice at high water, but when the tide is out, it shoals away to nothing, and there is merely the stream of the Esk, running between the banks of sand, with rocks here and there. Outside the harbor, on this side, there rises for about half a mile a great reef, the sharp edge of which runs straight out from behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell, which swings in bad weather, and sends in a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He is coming this way. He is a funny old man. He must be awfully old, for his face is all gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. He tells me that he is nearly 100, and that he was a sailor in the Greenland fishing fleet when Waterloo was fought. He is, I am afraid, a very skeptical person, for when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said very brusquely, I wouldn't fash messel about them, miss. Them things be all worn out. Mind, I don't say that they never was, but I do say that they wasn't in my time. They be all very well for comers and trippers and the like, but not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from York and Leeds, that be always eating cured herrings and drinking tea and looking out to buy cheap jet, would creed aught. I wonder myself. I wonder myself who'd be bothering telling lies to them, even the newspapers, which is full of fool talk. I thought he would be a good person to learn interesting things from, so I asked him if he would mind telling me something about the whale fishing in the old days. He was just settling himself to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he labored to get up and said, "I must gang againwards home now, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like to be kept waiting when tea is ready." For it takes me time to crammel aboon the greens, for there be many of 'em, and miss, I lack belly timber sarely by the clock. He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying, as well as he could, down the steps. The steps are a great feature on the place. They lead from the town up to the church. And there are hundreds of them. I do not know how many, and they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must originally have had something to do with the abbey. I shall go home too. Lucy went out visiting her mother, and as they were only duty calls, I did not go. They will be home by this. August 1. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had most interesting talk with my old friend and the two others who always come and join them. He's evidently Sir Oracle of them, and I should think must have been in his time a most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything, and downfaces everybody. If he can't out-argue them, he bullies them, and then he takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old men do not lose any time in coming up and sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed to and did not contradict her, but gave me a double share instead. I got him on the subject of the legends, and he went off at once into a sort of sermon. I must try to remember it and put it down. It all be fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and not else. These bands and wafts and boghosts and bargists and bogles and all of them is only fit to set barns and dizzy women a blunderin'. They be not but air blubs. They and all grims and the signs and warnin's be all invented by parsons and ilsome buke bodies and railway touters to skeer and skunners halflins and to get folks to do something that they don't otherwise inclined to do. It makes me fretful to think of them. Why, it's them that, not content with printing lies on the paper and preaching them out of pulpits, does want to be cutting them on the tombstones. Look here, all around you, what aren't you will? all them Steens holding up their heads as well as they can out of their pride is a cant. Simply tumbling down with the weight of all the lies wrote on them. Here lies the body, or sacred to the memory, wrote all of them on, yet in high and half of them there be no bodies at all, and the memories of them being carried a pinch of snuff about, much less sacred. Lies, all of them. Nothing but lies of one kind or another. My God. But it'll be a square scoundrement at the day of judgment when they come tumbling out up in their death sarks, all drooped up together and trying to drag their tombstones with them to prove how good they was. Some of them trembling and dithering, with their hands in that dossened and slippy from the lion in the sea, that they can't even keep their group of them. That was quite a mouthful of a paragraph. Jeez. I could see that from the old fellow's self-satisfied air and the way in which he looked around for the approval of his cronies that he was showing off, so I put in a word to keep him going. Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones aren't all wrong. Yablins. There may be a poorish few that not wrong, savin' where they make out the people too good. For there be folk that do think the bowl, a bomb bowl be like the sea, if it only be their... Hold on. Okay. Here lies... Nope, wrong paragraph. The whole thing be only lies. Now look you here. You come here a stranger, and you see in this Kirkgath. I nodded, for I thought it better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on, and you constate that all these Steens be a boon folk that be happed here, snod and snog. I assented again. Then that just be where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that be tomb as old Dunn's baka box. On a Friday night, he nudged one of his companions, and they all laughed. And my gog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one. The aftest abaft the beer bank. Read it. I went over and read. Edward Spenslag, Master Mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres. April 1854. 30 years old. When I came back, Mr. Swales went on. Who brought him home, I wonder, to have him here, murdered off the coast of Andres, and you constated his body lay under? Why, I could name a dozen whose bones lie in the Greenland seas above. He pointed northwards. Or where the currents may have drifted them. There be the Steens around you. You can with your young eyes read the small print of the lies from here. This Braithwaite Lowry, I knew his father, lost in the lively off Greenland in 20. or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same seas in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off Cape Farewell a year later, or old John Rawlings, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in '50. Do you think that all of these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I have me Heatherums about it. I tell you that when they got here, they'd be Jomlin and Jocelyn one another that way and that, be a fight up on the ice in the old days, when we'd be at one another from daylight till dark, and trying to tie up our cuts by the light of the aurora borealis. This was evidently local pleasantry, for the old man cackled over it, and his cronies joined in with gusto. But, I said, surely you are not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all the poor people, or their spirits, will have to take their tombstones with them on the Day of Judgment. Do you think that will really be necessary? Well, what else be they tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please their relatives, I suppose. To please their relatives, you suppose. This he said with intense scorn. How will it pleasure their relatives to know that lies is wrote over them, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies? He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested, close to the edge of the cliff. Read the lies on that Thruffstein, he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and read, "Sacred to the memory of George Cannon, who died in the hope of a glorious resurrection on July 29th, 1873, falling from the rocks at Kettleness. His tomb was erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow." Really, Mr. Swales, I don't see anything very funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely and somewhat severely. You don't see aught funny? Ha! Ha! But that's because you don't gone the sorrowing mother that was a hellcat that hated him, because he was a crude. A regular lammeter he was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide in order that she mightn't get insurance she put on his life. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket that they had for scaring the crows with. 'Twarn't for crows then, for it brought the clegs and the dwops to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say myself that he'd hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want Adel where she was. Now, isn't that Steen at any rate? He hammered it with his stick as he spoke. A pack of lies. And wouldn't it make Gabriel Keckle when Geordie comes panting up the grease with the tombstone balanced on his hump and asked to be took as evidence? I did not know what to say, But Lucy turned the conversation as she said, rising up, "Oh, well, why did you tell us all this? It is my favorite seat, and I cannot leave it. And now I find I must go on sitting over the grave of a suicide." "That won't harm you, my pretty, and make it poor Geordie gladsome to have some trim lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt you. Why, I've sat here and off and on for 9-20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't you, don't you fash about them as lies under you, or that doesn't lie here either. There either. It'll be time for you to get and start when you see the tombstones all run away with, and the place as bare as a stumblefield. There's the clock, and I must go. My service to ye, ladies." And off he hobbled. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I hadn't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. The same day. I came up here alone, for I am very sad. There was no letter for me. I hope there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just struck 9. I see the lights scattered all over town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, sometimes singly. They run right up the Esk and die away in the curve of the valley. To my left, the view is cut off by a black line of roof of the old house next to the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the fields away behind me, and there is a clatter on a donkey's hoofs up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time, and further along the quay there is a Salvation Army meeting in the back street. Neither of the bands hears the other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is, and if he is thinking of me. I wish he were here. Hi. Today we'll be reviewing the streamer. Will there be new followers? I don't know. Maybe. Will the story get to its climactic end? Maybe. Will they get 90 followers? Let's see. Before we get into the stream, spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Oh, thank you for the follow, story recap Twitch. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're just reading some Dracula. Jonathan Harker is missing and still stuck in Dracula's castle. And we don't know what's going to happen to him, but I assume that it's nothing good. Dr. Seward's Diary. 5 June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting the more I get to understand the man. He has certain qualities very largely developed: selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. I wish I could get at what is the object of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is I do not know. His redeeming quality is a love of animals, though indeed he has such curious turns in it that I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. His pets are of odd sorts. Just now his hobby is catching flies. He has at present such a quantity that I have had myself to expostulate. To my astonishment, he did not break into a fury, as I expected, but took the matter in simple seriousness. He thought for a moment, and then said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course, I said, that would do. I must watch him. June 18. He has turned his mind now to spiders, and has got several big fellows in a box. He keeps feeding them with his flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished, although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from outside his room. 1 July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear out some of them at all events. He cheerily acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before for reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it and held it exultantly for a few moments between his thumb and finger, and before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This gave me an idea, or a rudimentary one. I must watch how he gets rid of the spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he is always jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers, and added up in batches, and then the totals added in batches again, as though he were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. July 8. There is a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It will be a whole idea soon, and then, unconscious cerebration. You will have to give to the wall your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days, so I might notice if there were any change. Things remain as they were, except that he has parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He managed to get a sparrow, and has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those two do remain, however, and are well fed, for he still brings in the flies and by tempting them with his food. 19 July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor. And as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said, with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, "A kitten, a nice little, sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed." I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity. But I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and the spiders. So I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh yes, I would like a cat. I only ask for a kitten lest you should refuse me a cat." No one would refuse me a kitten, would they? I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it, for there is a sudden fierce, sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an underdeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him with his present craving and see how it will work out. Then I shall know more. 10 p.m. I have visited him again, and found him sitting in a corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended upon it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word, and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the early morning. 20 July. Visited Renfield very early, before the attendant went his rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he had saved in the window, and was manifestly beginning his fly-catching again, and beginning it cheerfully with a good grace. I looked around for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they went. He replied, without turning around, that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there were anything on about him during the day. "11 a.m. The attendant has just been to me to say that Renfield has been very sick and disgorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, doctor, he said, that he has eaten his birds, and that he just took and ate them raw. 11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make even him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought has been buzzing about my brain lately is complete, and the theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him, and call him Zoophagous, life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve it in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider, and many spiders to one bird. And they wanted a cat, and then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would be almost worthwhile to complete the experiment. It might be done if there were only a sufficient cause. Men sneered at vivisection, yet look at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secret of one such mind, did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic, I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Bird and Sanderson's physiology or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing, if only there were a sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale with me, for may not I too be of an exceptional brain, yeah, can't pronounce that word, congenitally. How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder how many lives at how many lives he values a man, or if at only one. He has closed the account. He has closed the account most accurately, and today begun a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me, it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it will be under the great recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours. But I must only wait on hopeless, and work. Work. If I could only have as strong a cause as my poor mad friend, a good unselfish cause to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Oh boy. That was something. Mina Mary's Journal, July 26. I am anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. And there is also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different than writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time, and was very concerned, but yesterday dear Mr. Hawkins, who is always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had just been received. It is only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says that he is starting for home. That is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it. And it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westenra has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the ledges of cliffs, then suddenly waken and fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Poor dear, she is naturally anxious. About Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit. That he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out, if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she is already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same, only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Honorable Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up for here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well. And I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up to the seat on the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. 27 July. No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him, though why I should I do not know. But I do wish that he would write. If it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but still the anxiety and the perpetually being awakened is beginning to tell on me, and I am getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Holmwood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost that anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. 3 August. Another week gone, and no news from Jonathan, not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I look at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her, which I do not understand. Even in her sleep she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. 6 August. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If I only knew where to write to or where to go to, I should feel easier, but no one has heard a word of Jonathan since that last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fisherman said that we were in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a gray day, and the sun, as I write, is hidden in thick clouds, high over Kettleness. Everything is gray except the green grass, which seems like emerald amongst it. Gray earthy rock, gray clouds, tinged with the sunburst at the far edge, hang over the gray sea, into which the sand points stretch like gray fingers. The sea is tumbling over the shallows and the sandy flats with a roar, muffled in sea mists drifting inland. The horizon is lost in a gray mist. All is vastness. The clouds are piled up like giant rocks, and there is a brool over the sea that sounds like some presage of doom. Dark figures are on the beach here and there, and sometimes half shrouded in the mist, and seem men like trees walking. The fishing boats are racing for home, and rise and dip in the groundswell as they sweep into the harbor, bending to the scuppers. Here comes old Mr. Swales. He is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat that he wants to talk. I have been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, so I took his poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I am afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead and such like for weeks past. But I didn't mean them, and I want you to remember that when I'm gone. We odd folks be daffled." And with one foot abaft the crocule, I have no idea. Don't altogether like to think of it, and we don't want to feel scared of it. And that's why I've been looking to make light of it, so that I'd cheer up my own heart a bit. But Lord, love ye, miss, I ain't afraid of dying, not a bit. Only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be old, and 100 years is too much for any man to expect. And I'm so nigh that the old man is already whetting his scythe. You see, I can't get out of the habit of caffin about it all at once. The chaffs will wag as they be used to. Some day soon, the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me. But don't ye do a greeting and greet, my dearie, for he saw that I was crying. If he should come this very night, I'd not refuse to answer his call. For life be, after all, only a waitin' for something else than what you're doing, and death be all that we can rightly depend on. But I'm content, for it's comin' to me, my dearie, and comin' quick. It may be comin' while we be lookin' and wandering. Maybe it's in that wind over the sea that's bringing with it loss and wreck, and sore distress and sad hearts. Look, he cried suddenly. There's something in the wind, and in the host beyond that sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air. I feel it comin'. Lord, make me answer cheerful when my call comes." He held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he was in prayer. After a few minutes' silence, he got up and shook hands with me and blessed me and said goodbye and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when the Coast Guard came along with his spying glass under his arm. He stopped to talk to me as he always does, but all the time he kept looking at a strange ship. "I can't make her out," he said. "She's a Russian by the look of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm comin', but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or to put in here. Look there again. She is steering mighty strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand on the wheel. Changes about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow." Oh, thank you, Edgar Perez. Thank you for the follow. For some reason, my audio alerts aren't playing. I'm sorry that I missed you. I wonder why that is. I will have to fix that. Let me see. Let's do sound. Test widgets. No. Interesting. It says it should be playing. Why can't I hear it? Okay, well, I will fix that for next time. Chapter 7. Cuttings from the Daily Graph. Pasted in Mina Murray's journal from a correspondent. Whitby, 8 August. One of the greatest and suddenest storms on record had just been experienced here, with results both strange and unique. The weather had been somewhat sultry, but not to any degree uncommon in the month of August. Saturday evening was as fine as was ever known, but the great body of holidaymakers laid out yesterday for visits to Mulgrave Woods, Robin Hood's Bay, Rig Mill, Runswick, Staithes, and the various trips in the neighborhood of Whitby. The steamers Emma and Scarborough made trips up and down the coast. Hold on, let me get a drink of water. The day was unusually fine till the afternoon, when some of the gossips who frequent the East Cliff churchyard, and from that commanding eminence watched the wide sweep of sea visible to the north and east, called attention to a sudden show of maris tails high in the sky to the northwest. The wind was then blowing from the southwest in the mild degree, which in barometrical language is ranked number 2, light breeze. The Coast Guard on duty at once made report, and one old fisherman who, for more than half a century, has kept watch on weather signs from the East Cliff, foretold in emphatic manner the coming of a sudden storm. The approach of a sunset was so very beautiful, so grand in its masses of splendidly colored clouds, that there was quite an assemblage on the walk along the cliff in the old churchyard to enjoy the beauty. Before the sun dipped below the black mass of Kettleness, suddenly, boldly athwart the western sky, Its downward way was marked by myriad clouds of every sunset color: flame, purple, pink, green, violet, and all the tints of gold. With here and there, there, yeah. With here and there masses not large, but of seemingly absolute blackness, in all sorts of shapes, as well outlined as colossal silhouettes. The experience was not lost on the painters, and doubtless some of the sketches of the Prelude to the Storm will grace the RA and the RI walls in May next. More than one captain made up his mind then and there that his cobble or his mule, as they term the different classes of boats, would remain in the harbor till the storm had passed. The wind fell away entirely during the evening, and at midnight there was a dead calm, a sultry heat, and that prevailing intensity which, on the approach of thunder, affects persons of a sensitive nature. There were but a few lights in the sight at the sea, for even the coasting steamers, which usually hug the shore so closely, kept well to seaward. But few fishing boats were in sight. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner with all sails set, which was seemingly going westwards. The foolhardiness or ignorance of her officers was a prolific theme for comment, whilst she remained in sight, and efforts were made to signal her to reduce sail in face of her danger. Before the night shut down, she was seen with sails idly flapping as she gently rolled on the undulating swell of the sea. As idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. I think that actually I'm gonna stop there because I'm getting a bit hungry and I've been going for about 2 hours. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed another section of Dracula, and I hope that you'll join me again next time. We'll see. I want to stream tomorrow. I really want to stream tomorrow, but I don't know if I can, because I have an appointment after work that I have to keep. So we'll see. But yeah, this has been fun. And again, thanks for all of the kindness that you guys have shown me. Not just today, but since I started. It's we're just getting started, and our best days are yet to come, I think. I hope. So I will see you later. Have a good night, and keep on reading. Thanks. Bye.